Final Fantasy XIV is one of those games that I was fabulously late to. After almost 20 years of having a dysfunctional relationship with World of Warcraft,
every day I wake up and I hope you're dead!
I decided in 2023 to break off the engagement and meet someone new, and thankfully I didn't have to look very far for a replacement. Back in 2023, Final Fantasy XIV really took me for a spin. It's seriously one of those gaming experiences that I'll remember for as long as I live. And to make it clear, no, I did not skip any of the content. I mainlined the pain like a professional masochist, and as such I played from A Realm Reborn and finished off with Endwalker in the span of maybe, 2 months, and thankfully I didn't need to wait very long for the next expansion, Dawntrail, which was scheduled to release in 2024. Now this might sound familiar to you, or maybe it doesn't, but if it does and you're stuck in that period either before or after playing through Dawntrail and you're asking yourself, but is it worth getting into in 2025? Or maybe you've never played FF14 before and you're still deciding on whether it's worth jumping into or not, and well, if it wasn't obvious from the first 20 seconds of this video, if you're someone who's pining for a long and detailed story that gradually builds into an explosive, semi-orgasmic crescendo, well, then Final Fantasy XIV is your soulmate. There's not a single MMO on the market that does story and character building like FF14 does. You will form emotional bonds with fictional catboys and there's no reversing it. What I'm trying to say here is that you're probably gay. In any case, I gotta admit, making a video around Final Fantasy XIV is really difficult because so many things can constitute a spoiler. I mean, even naming a mount feels like I'm breaking NDA. But I don't think I've ever played an online game that takes you through so many highs and lows, laughs and tears, and in the end leaves you completely satisfied. Before Dawntrail, that is. And we'll get to that a little later, but for now, let's talk about some basics for all of you beginners. As I always tend to do with these videos, let's go through the character creation, and well, while having some pretty alright presets that can absolutely make your character look cool, it does have a distinct lack in level of detail. You can't really do much interesting stuff with any of the 10 playable races, except maybe changing your height. It's one of those parts about the game that's always left me feeling somewhat disappointed because I can never really make my character just right, and it's especially noticeable after having recently played Black Desert Online, which just completely outclasses FF14 in terms of details that you can adjust. Let's just say that I miss my jiggle physics. That said, BDO does not have a variety of races to pick from, and for what it's worth, when you can play as a giant bun girl, it's just an automatic win, man. And after having played through most of my 2 years as a bunny with heterochromia, I'd say that you get used to it, especially so considering the amount of screen time your character gets with all the cutscenes. But it's not just an interactive movie we're playing here, so what about the combat, the gameplay? Well, FF14, like many other MMOs before it, struggles pretty heavily with making combat interesting in the early levels. Press one button, wait, press another button, and that's your rotation. I can't really think of a single class or job, as it's known in this game, that starts out being really fun right out the box, and I've played every single job in this game. Most jobs feel pretty clumsy and slow to play in the beginning, and I think this is probably one of the most common areas where someone might just decide to give up on the game, simply because FF14's combat is very deliberate in design. This gets very clear as you unlock more and more skills, as FF14 uses a combo system where if you chain various abilities together in the correct order, you successively make each ability stronger. This combo system is by all intents and purposes very casual in nature, and because there are no skill trees in FF14, you'll probably be burnt out from your main class at one point or another. However, unlike many other MMOs, FF14 doesn't lock you into a specific class for the remainder of the game. You can pretty much decide to switch jobs on the fly, given that you've unlocked the job through a questline beforehand. I very much love this system because it makes leveling alts less of a necessity, and you can focus pretty much all of your time and effort into your main character. On the other hand though, I kinda miss the alt-friendliness of WoW, mainly because having alts allows you to hop between characters that can differ wildly in appearance and design. FF14 bypasses this issue too, but in a less impressive way. You see, there are these items called Fantasia that allows you to redesign your character, and you can completely redesign your toon from the ground up by using this. The problem is that aside from a few free ones you sometimes receive in-game, Fantasias can only be obtained on the MOG store, where you pay with real money to receive in-game items. Ah, yes, nothing says fantasy immersion like entering your credit card info to change into a catgirl. Now, while I don't necessarily have a problem with this, it is a little annoying to have to resort to buying this whenever you just want to play around with another toon. Well, just play on your other alt then, I hear you screaming in the comment section, and well, you're right, you are free to just hop on over and level up your alt. But unfortunately, FF14 does not share progress between characters. Hell, you don't even share banks, and you can't even send mail to yourself. And because of the sheer volume of questlines and prerequisites you have to complete to access certain things like dungeons, trials, and raids, you will have to do them all over again. So let's just say that FF14 isn't really the most alt-friendly game, hence my complaint. At any rate, the job system is pretty great, and before I forget, I just gotta say how much I enjoy the trade skilling jobs. For example, if you're not much of a fighter, you can simply elect to just gather and craft your way through the game. And FF14 has this pretty cool approach to crafting where you have to actually, well, craft. Shocking, I know, a crafting system that involves crafting, I hear you say. Next, I'll be telling you that fishing involves fish. Seriously though, as an example, if you're forging a ring and you want it to become a high quality item, then you have to fill a quality bar by selectively picking the right action before you run out of attempts. It's like a turn-based battle between you and a bracelet, and sometimes the bracelet wins. This makes the crafting side of FF14 feel very engaging, and I often find myself losing my sense of time whenever I start working on my trade skill jobs. The sun rises, the coffee's cold, and I've made 400 shoes. Aside from trade skilling, gathering, and playing through the main questline, or MSQ for short, there's a whole host of things to do in Final Fantasy XIV, and naturally the amount of activities to do increases with each new expansion. Farm for legendary weapons, buy your own house or apartment and furnish it, partake in massive PvP battles, try your hand at savage raiding, take up zany questlines that'll have you question the sanity of Yoshi P. There's so many things in this game that'll keep you occupied for months, if not even years, and whether that's fulfilling or deeply concerning is, well, simply up to you. That said, and speaking for myself here, I picked up FF14 because I heard that it does a good job with storytelling, and well, it disappointed my productivity, my social life, and my spine, but not my soul. Now, as I mentioned earlier, talking about Final Fantasy XIV story and characters is so goddamn fucking difficult because there are so many twists and turns that is best served fresh, and any footage I show for you on screen could be seen as a spoiler to someone. Honestly, if I even breathe near the plot, someone's gonna post a timestamped angry comment or somebody's gonna chase me down. I swear. But let's just say this, the base game storyline, that being a Realm Reborn, leading up to and post Endwalker, is absolutely phenomenal in ways I just can't describe in a way that does it justice. You simply have to experience it for yourself. And by experience it, I mean cry into your keyboard at 3 AM over a mommy goddess with huge badonkers. At any rate, this brings us to the most recent expansion, Dawntrail. Now, Dawntrail is a very interesting expansion because it is supposed to serve as a sort of soft reboot to the entire storyline. You see, the previous expansions were all building to a grand finale in Endwalker, ending off a specific storyline that started with the base game, A Realm Reborn. And after the giant and frankly absurd events of Endwalker, Dawntrail was always in a very bad spot because it had to contend with one of the greatest story culminations in video game history. And well, Dawntrail is an expansion that, in my opinion, stumbles a lot, especially in terms of writing, characters, and pacing, and unfortunately its issues are not just bound to storytelling. While some of the later content like the 7.2 and 7.3 patches introduce some really cool new dungeons and raids, the base Dawntrail experience as you level up your Warrior of Light from 90 to 100 can feel like an absolute slog sometimes, and it's not until roughly half of your leveling experience where the game finally starts to pick up speed again. Like, you can absolutely feel it in your bones when starting at 90. At one point you log in and think, wait, was that it? And then 10 hours later the game goes, oh wait, here's the plot, found it! The storyline is more laid back, you're in a more sunny and tropical environment, and even the Warrior of Light takes a backseat in a world where they're usually the main character. This, as it turns out, has become one of the largest complaints about Dawntrail, where the stakes aren't as high and the story sort of scales downwards instead of up. And as much as I agree that it does indeed get very fucking boring sometimes, I also understand why Yoshi P and the team chose to go this route, because when you end a saga, like in the case of Endwalker, you sort of have to pull back and set the stage again, especially so due to the scale of events in Endwalker. However, as I mentioned, things start getting interesting around the halfway point, and I think the devs has managed to make the expansion more enjoyable as time has passed, especially so with the more recent updates. So at the end of the day, is Final Fantasy XIV worth playing in 2025? Abso-heckin-lutely. In Final Fantasy XIV, you will find some of the most emotional and impactful storylines in gaming. Stories that make you hurt so bad that it makes you want to call your mama and ask her how her day is going, just to fill your body with something, anything to wash away the hollow emptiness that has taken root in the depths of your soul, especially so after Endwalker. Final Fantasy XIV may not have the most explosive and engaging combat, the greatest endgame, or even the best writing, but damn it, no other MMO out there will have you weeping like a goddamn baby that lost its favorite toy. What I'm trying to say here is that Final Fantasy XIV is, well, it's pretty alright.